Hey there, folks. It's Dave from Nick Snacks, and today I've got my recommendations for what to read and the order to read them in for one of the most underestimated characters of all time, Daredevil. Now, if you're new to the world of Daredevil, don't worry, I'm going to keep it spoiler free. So, my apologies if it's a bit vague. And for those of you who are already fans, let's just dive into my top picks for Daredevil comics. First off, you can't go wrong with starting at the beginning with Volume 1, Number 1. Sure, it can be a bit campy, but it introduces you to Matt Murdock, Foggy Nelson, and Karen Page. Gives you the origin story behind Daredevil's powers and the tragic reason behind Matt's drive for the pursuit of justice. Daredevil number 1 is an undervalued Silver Age key. Get it now. Low grade, mid grade, whatever you can grab it at. Options for Daredevil number 1. You've got King Size Special Marvel Superheroes, which reprints Daredevil number 1. Came out in 1966. There's also a facsimile edition. And there's also a Wizard Ace edition that's got a pretty killer J. Scott Campbell cover with Kingpin and Daredevil on it. Now let's jump ahead to number 7, where Daredevil goes head-to-head with Namor the Submariner. It's not just because it's one of Stan Lee's favorites, but because it showcases the defining characteristic of Matt Murdock. He never backs down. Strangely enough, for Daredevil number 7, there are no alternatives. This thing hasn't been reprinted from what I can tell. It's still attainable. You can get a good high mid-grade copy for under $1,000, and if I were you, I'd swoop it up. I think that with the going back to the yellow and red costume in She-Hulk, if he comes back in his Daredevil red costume, you might see this thing tick up pretty quick. Moving on, I highly recommend reading issues 168 through 191 in their entirety and in order to fully appreciate the legendary Frank Miller run before reading his Man Without Fear limited series. I have to give credit where credit's due. While Miller wrote and did layouts for this fantastic run, it was Klaus Janson who really gave the run its iconic look. Alright, there's one major key in the Frank Miller run, and that is issue 168, First Appearance of Elektra. It's a very key issue. It is on the way up. I still think it's worth buying into. She's a great character. She's been around. She's been in a lot of games and toys and statues, and she's a great character, so you can't go wrong with that. Other books in this run that are notable are 181, The Death of Elektra. That's a minor key. And I would say Daredevil number 170. That's where Miller took the Kingpin from being kind of a goofy Spider-Man villain to Wilson Fisk, the big mob boss, and Daredevil villain. Miller returned to the character for the Born Again story arc from issues 227 to 233. In that arc, he took an even darker turn with Matt. Had fantastic art by David Mazzucchelli. After that, I would read the Man Without Fear limited series. For the Born Again arc, even before the Disney Plus show was announced, I'm surprised that Daredevil 230 isn't a minor key out of that arc. Just because of the cover, with the Daredevil logo and Born Again on it. You also got Sister Maggie in the upper left-hand corner. I'm really surprised it's not at least a minor key, so you might want to pick that one up if you get a chance. Jumping forward, the Brian Michael Bendis and Alex Maleev run in Daredevil Volume 2, numbers 26 through 81, is simply sublime. Bendis grounds Matt in the seedy underworld of Hell's Kitchen, and Maleev's art transports you to the dark corners of both the courtroom and the kitchen. For those of you who love a good Elseworlds type story, the Daredevil End of Days limited series is a must-read. For the Bendis and Maleev run, I think their first issue, 26. It's got a fantastic cover. It's the first issue of the collaborative team, so in that case, it's much like Daredevil 158, which is a minor key. It's so classic, the Marvels reprinted it, and they haven't reprinted Daredevil number 7, so I'd grab this at fairly cheap, and it's a good starting point. And finally, the latest run, Chip Zdarsky and Marco Cicchetto's take on Daredevil explores the ramifications of being a superhero, which led into the Marvel's Devil's Reign event in 2022. It's definitely worth checking out. So there you have it, my recommended must-read order for Daredevil. And while there are plenty of other great runs within the title, these are my personal favorites. And with that, I'm going to go reread some of these.